What I'm talking about is the rise of digital marketing. And in an earlier conversation, you said something that has legitimately stuck in my head to this day. And you said, digital is a tactic, not a strategy. And especially during the digital boom, my goodness, was everybody thinking the exact opposite. How do you think that that misunderstanding in the marketing world, that digital was a strategy, affected the overall profession?
Wow. Well, I'm going to take it back a little bit.
Please.
So my current book is called Hoodwinked, and that's about how marketers use the same tactics as cults, and we'll talk about that. But before that, I wrote a book called Black Ops Advertising, and it's about all the ways that we're marketed to that we don't know we're being marketed to. And so I was doing the research for that probably in the early 2010s, and I kept asking the salespeople, okay, but how does it work? But how do I track it? How do I explain it to people? And none of the salespeople could explain it. And it's really funny because then if you ask people now, how do the algorithms work? They still don't know how the algorithms work. And so the people that are making money are the Metas and the Googles and the Amazons. And I'll tell you, I even recently tried Amazon ads for my book. They didn't do squat. So Amazon's making money, not making money for the people on their site who needed to be working. But how it happened to the question that you're asking is that people saw this shiny thing, right? The marketers fell for the marketing.
Yes.
That's what's so funny, right?
Wow.
Because what marketers do is show you the shiny thing over here, so you won't look at the bad thing that they're doing over here, right? And so what happened is that the marketers saw the digital, like, oh, this is cool and fun, and we'll use this, and we'll get into that, right? And so they dove headfirst into using digital, and I tracked over time what was happening as the money was moving away from legacy media over into the digital space. And what we began to see was that, it's costing less money, but it isn't any more effective in driving your sales. And at the same time, what we have is, right, one of the people when I was doing research for Black Ops said to me, "You're an old-time marketer." Well, I wear that badge proudly, very proudly, because I still teach my students the basics. You have to have an objective strategy tactics, right? You have to know who you're talking to. You have to know what it is you're going to say to them. And what we used to talk about with legacy media, right, was effective frequency. And that effective frequency was 3. Now, effective frequency is at least 7, but I've heard anywhere from 7 to 13.
Yeah, I heard it got like climbing up to the double digits. Yeah.
So if you're on a platform, and anybody who's on TikTok now, and most people on TikTok are saying that it has gone full in shitification at this point, and it has. You open up the app and you see an ad. It's, sponsored ad, sponsored content after SpawnCon, after SpawnCon, after SpawnCon, so that you're not seeing anything you really want. But it has to be that way in order to be able to get the message in front of people enough that it becomes embedded so that they will then go out and buy the product. Or they don't have to go out and buy the product. All they have to do is push the button and buy the product. But is that any better than where we were before, right? And I think in terms of, much in the same way that advertisers chased digital, the legacy media chased Netflix. Because what they did is they saw Netflix being really successful with streaming, and they said, oh, we've got to be there. We've got to be there. We've got to be there. But you know what? They didn't need to be there because they had the content and Netflix didn't. And what Netflix had was a whole lot of VC money that was propping them up. But the legacy media actually had the content, they had the film, they had the series, and they didn't need to go that hard into streaming. But now there's no way to back out of it. And so now we're seeing, what is it? It's going to be Warner Brothers, Disney, Paramount, like the whole thing is going to be one great big thing.
Horseshoe effect, right back to the 3 or 4 big only things that exist.
And what's so funny about what's going on now in relationship to both what's happening in streaming and what's happening in advertising is that there was this tacit agreement that you were going to get content for free because you were going to watch the ads. And what has happened over time is that people said, I'm not going to watch the ads. And it was okay if it was in legacy media. So you went to the kitchen and you got your beer, right?
Right.
Or you walked your dog. Nobody knew that you weren't really watching, but enough people were watching to make a difference and be able to sell some products, okay? And how many decks have we all done explaining to our bosses that, yes, advertising does really
actually kind of works.
It really does work, right? Guys, yeah. But Wanamaker's idea of 50% is wasted, and I don't know which 50%, right? all of that kind of good stuff. So now you have that you had the advertising in legacy media working so that people would go out and buy. And now what you have in the digital space, yeah, you can track it. Yeah, you can find out who's buying. Yeah, you can push messages in front of people. But it isn't necessarily that you're getting people who wouldn't have bought you in the first place.
Oh, my goodness, yes.
Right?
Yes.
And so the whole idea of digital being the only place that you should be, or that should be the basis of your strategy, rather than thinking in terms of who it is that I want to talk to, where are the best places I can find them. Oh, I remember. People said they didn't want to watch ads.
Yes.
Right? So the tacit agreement was that you were going to watch ads and then you were going to get this content for free.
Precisely.
Okay. So then people said, okay, I'm going to put blocks on my computer. Mm-hmm. I'm going to speed through the ads on my DVR. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to watch any of this kind of stuff. And then everything sort of shifted over to the digital. Okay, great. For a time in digital and in streaming, we didn't watch ads. Right? So we got to see Netflix for free. We got Prime. We didn't have to watch ads. Now the ads have all come back with a vengeance. So what we're also seeing, and any good marketer knows, that if you see an ad over and over and over again, what happens? You get wear out.
Yes,
and
you do.
People just say, no, people just block it out and they don't see it.
It's white noise.
Absolutely. And so what we've done by turning everything over into digital is create a space, an environment where people don't want to watch advertising, and yet they're being bombarded with it more and more and more. And we're getting to the point where certainly I'm hearing people talk about it in spaces like TikTok, and once ownership changes, maybe that's even going to force the issue more, is that people are saying, you know what, maybe I need to go touch grass.
Yeah.